to Robot Adventures helpful video. Goodbye. This video brought to you by, in part, by this beverage. Since I'm drinking the beverage, it is now part of me. Strong, extra cool Pepsi. So this video is for people interested in 3D printing and very new to 3D printing. This is my part 2 of my super beginner. Welcome to 3D printing, setting up your DIY printer and getting it to work and trying to get a good print, trying to get it to stick on the bed and stuff. So this is my Flying Bear P902. This does not have auto bed leveling or like a BL Touch or an inductive sensor. Nothing like that. It's a 22 by 22 bed, and it came with an aluminum bed with the heating element underneath there. Yeah, and that's what we got. So if you got something a little bit different, the setup is different. You might have your hot end going up and the bed's moving around. And this one, the hot end moves around and the bed goes down. That leads to some maybe some troubleshooting or some situations where leveling the bed could be a little bit tricky. And yeah, so I want to take a look at all those things. There are many videos out there talking about, stuff like this. A lot of them are informative, but some of them require you to own or use, or I mean not require, but they have these things like maybe some kind of temperature sensing item, which will read the temperature from a distance, or they'll have some other component like some multimeter, some other device that maybe is a little bit pricey and they have on hand, and they can use that tool to do the thing, and maybe you don't have that thing. I don't want to make that kind of video. Or you'll have a video where the guy will just stand there in front of the camera and say, yeah, I made this, and you can see that this thing is like this, and here's a comparison of here's another one, and you can see that, and it's like, okay, I can't see anything. And since we're dealing with 3D printing, we need patience. And remember, I do not work for you. I make the videos like I want to make them. So, I hope it helps. Comments like, oh, you should do the video like this and add music and make it, hey, check it out. Tips and tricks. No. You should make that video the way you want to make it. Okay? Yeah. I don't want to make that. I want you to make the video the way, oh, you don't work for me. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, that's right. So, my flying bit, let me tell you about, so what I want to do is to talk about the way it came, the original setup, and how I modified it a little bit using maybe like $5, to maybe improve the insulation and the surface of the bed, stuff like that. I'll tell you all about that. And plus, I've spent a lot of money just playing with it because it's my hobby, and yeah, I don't mind spending, you know, $10 here, $20 here on stuff. It's like, oh, experiment and stuff, because it's my hobby. And you don't have to do any of that. You're just like, oh, okay, see what works, see what doesn't work, and we'll try to go over that. And yeah, maybe explain why I did the things that I did. So first, let me tell you about the original setup for the Flying Bear P902. So it came with maybe a 3mm thick 220 by 220 millimeter piece of aluminum, and underneath that was this PCB heating element that would heat up it would heat up and then heat up the bed that was right on top of it. Underneath it is a thermistor to record the temperature, and this one is welded. It's soldered. So you may have a different setup. When I got mine, I used the aluminum plate on top of this PCB heating element here, and it was working well. I was printing, and then eventually it started to warp, and I was like, oh no, that's kind of not good. So I contacted Flying Bear. I bought mine off of AliExpress, and I told them that the bed was bent and warped and stuff, and they sent me out another bed, and it came this way, and the thermistor is in there, and it's soldered on here. And it's like, okay, well, that's how it goes. This is the one they sent me, but it's all like one unit, I think. My PCB is welded a little bit differently. It's welded on the back there, and it's a different design. And the PCB still worked. It was just the aluminum part that was bad. And you can pick up a 3mm piece of aluminum at the hardware store for I don't know how much, like $10 or something, maybe less. But then you have to drill holes in there and then set it up, then use like a countersink chamfer around to make it flush. Or you can just buy another one. And the way it was set up was the heating element was underneath the aluminum plate, and once you started heating the bed, a lot of the heat would radiate just down into this open zone, right? There's nothing down here. There's just heat just shooting down like this. And it works. It was like, yay, it works. But it seemed like a waste of heat. And so I told Flying Bear that I needed another heating bed, another aluminum bed, and they sent that out, and I was like, yeah. But in the meantime, I went to Amazon, and I was like, well, you know, Amazon Japan, I can maybe order one. I want to order something, and I didn't want something that would warp. So I did a little bit of research and checked out the borosilicate glass plate, and I heard like, oh, borosilicate printing on glass, it's super flat, and because it's borosilicate, it won't warp. But later I find out that maybe sometimes they do warp, but mine is pretty good. And I ordered mine from Sign Tech, I want to say that. Here in Japan, the plate cost me about 15 to 17 bucks. It's like, okay, and those, you know, shipped out the next day. I got it, you know, like a day the next day or 2 days after that. And I was like, okay, I'm back to printing. I didn't have to wait for my replacement bed from Flying Bear from China. And so what I did, because I had the glass plate, I actually left the aluminum on the PCB and then just put the glass plate on top of that. So I was going from PCB to aluminum to glass and printing that way. And it was working. I was like, okay, well, that's good. It works. And then after that, I was like, you know, I put the glass on top, even though the aluminum was bent, warped, sagging a little bit. The glass on top was flat, so I still had that little bit of air gap between the aluminum and the glass. So I was like, okay. So after that, I just took off the aluminum and just because mine was able to separate, and put the glass right on the bed there. So, and I've run it that way for a long time. So I ran it that way, and I still run it this way. And then I was thinking, well, you know, I'm still radiating a bunch of heat down. Why don't I try to fix that and try to insulate it? So the setup I've got now is I took the 3mm aluminum, and I put that, well, you can see what I did there. Alright, so you can see I'm holding the wires. Where's my finger? You can see one of the wires going to my ramps is wired here, soldered onto the board there and onto the board there, and oh, you can't see it because the rod is it, but there, that white wire going underneath there, that's the thermistor, and yeah, the way it's set up is I needed to have some clearance there for those wires. So I used some spacers here for the PCB. So you can see that there's aluminum, a spacer, a washer, PCB, another washer, and the screw, and it all screws down onto there, and you got the adjustment screw way down there. Where's my finger? Right down there. Yeah. So that's the way I set it up. Underneath here, I used the cork. I put the cork in there. Cork is very cheap. And you can pick up a large sheet at the dollar store for like $1. That's why they name it that. So yeah, you can get different sizes and stuff. So here's um, that says big cork sheet. Big cork sheet. And yeah, so this one's 0.3 millimeters there. And that was $1. And here's another piece of cork. Another Dyson. This one, how many millimeters? What's the thickness? No, 0.4. 0.4. That's inches over there. 0.2 inches. So yeah, $1, fairly cheap, and you just cut that however you want. What I had to do is I put a big solid layer on the bottom there at 0.3 mil, and since this is 1 centimeter, I put 3 layers. For the thermistor, the heat detecting wire to run along the bottom there and into the center of the board, and because I was running at an angle, I allowed for that, and you can see some cork on the side over there. So that mod cost me all of $2. So that was a pretty expensive mod. No, oh, but that's not true. The glass plate, the borosilicate plate, ran 17 bucks. So if you want to print on glass, you're gonna have to buy the borosilicate glass plate. And if you want to insulate it, does insulating help? There are videos out there that show that the heat up time of the PCB is improved. So yeah, maybe it's okay, and it doesn't have to keep. The thermistor can maintain maybe a higher temperature, and it doesn't have to keep pumping out the little energon to heat up your bed over and over and over, because it's just losing heat that way. So it's kind of like a little oven, I guess. So maybe that's good. You're maybe saving energy. Energon. Sound wave. So let's say you're printing. Oh, I got that print, and I did that, and I did that. And you got a bunch of spray on there. Some people use hairspray or glue stick, or a lot of people, when they start printing, is like, oh, I got to use this painter's tape. Oh, painter's tape. And they start, and then they put a bunch of tape on the bed so that it'll stick well. But then you have to put a bunch of painter's tape on the bed so that it'll stick well. And I don't want to keep, oh, and I got to get some tape. Oh, where's my tape? And tape. So you're going to be tape master. I don't want to be tape master. I want to just put a little bit of glue stick, and printing on a super clean glass bed leaves a really nice finish, and maybe you've heard about that. Here's a nice you can see how reflective that is. That's the bottom side of the print, and it's just really smooth. That's what you get when you print on glass. So yeah, the benefits of glass are good, but the borosilicate glass can be a little bit pricey. Alright, so this leads to the next topic. So maybe you're like, oh, okay, you sold me, Reuven. I want to buy glass. I want to buy a piece of glass so I can swap it out. It's just held on there by some binder clips there, and it's like, ooh, swap it out, wash it, put it back on there, boom, I'm ready to go. I don't need a tape. I'm sold. Glass. Okay. So you jump on AliExpress or Banggood or wherever you go, and you're like, oh, I'm going to buy some glass. So you type in borosilicate glass, and you get a bunch of listings. It's like, oh, it's only $10, $8 for borosilicate glass. Hey, hold on. Hold on a second. Hold on one second. So, maybe not. If you go to maybe a known supplier like what Sign Tech, I think that's they will list on the description borosilicate glass plate, and you're like, okay, and it will be around $15 or something like that. It's like, okay, well, it's, you know, and the way they sell the glass is they sell it by 214 by 200, somewhere around there. But 200 is usually one of the default sizes. And that is because the PCB heating element here is 214 by 214. So that 200 will give you just enough space to clear the screws. And I'm too far away. Can I zoom in? I don't know. Oh, that looks like it worked. So the screw is just right next to the glass plate. So it's like, hey, you can still tighten stuff down. So you're happy. And they're happy because they got your money. So everybody's happy. And that's the, I guess, default size. You can get different sizes, but maybe they're not as well known, or they don't sell as well. So maybe the price will be different. And so why do I bring this up? Because if you look at the cheap glass sellers, the description will read borosilicate glass plate size. And then it will say something like 1 glass plate. So what does that mean? Is it borosilicate glass? Or is it the cheaper soda lime glass? And I think it's the cheap way to go. What they do is they use the description soda borosilicate glass plate, and they add size. So the size is 214 by 200, but the glass that you get is maybe not borosilicate. So you can see this glass here. This is a piece of glass that I got for, I think, $8 or something like that. $9. Out of China. Took you know, a couple of days, maybe 2 weeks to deliver. And here's the borosilicate glass that I got from Amazon. Notice any difference there? And there are different ways to test whether it's borosilicate glass, like some kind of density or oil or transparency of the glass. But just from this, I'm like, maybe that's a little bit weird. And here's another piece of glass that I got from the dollar store. And look at that. This is a picture frame. And this is the glass 3mm glass plate that I got from China. And this is the Syntec borosilicate glass that I got off of Amazon. Here's a picture frame. So let's take a look at that. So this little cheap picture frame cost me $1. And it's just it's the same as this one. This thicker one that I put on top there. The same thing. All I did was remove the glue and yes, washed it, removed the glue, and now I got it's got a little bit of a cut there to, you know, give it to, it's stylish, but that's just a piece of glass. So yeah, you can get glass, very cheap pieces of glass. I would suggest if you're gonna get a borosilicate glass, then make sure that you're getting it borosilicate glass. I don't know how much a cut piece of glass like this costs, but yeah. So that's it. Be careful about where you get your glass. It's cut. Is it worth $9 for this cut, for the dimensions of this glass? I don't think so. I think the profit margins on this cut piece of glass are like, yeah, glass, 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 glass. Sell more glass. So, yeah, be careful there. Goodbye. So, you know, it's like, hey, is that a Ferrari? Hey, yes, it's a Ferrari-sized car. You know, it's like a Ferrari size. Yeah, but is that a Ferrari? Yes, yes. You know, buy it right now. It's, you know, 25% off. It's new. Asahi Dry, 0 free. Everything 0. It tastes almost like a Miller Clear beer from 1993, 94. We had that in Austin, Texas. One of the test markets for that, but never got off the ground. It was that year where everything was clear. Clear Pepsi, clear deodorant, clear... I don't know, no clear-headedness. That wasn't happening. So, yeah, glass is something nice, but, yeah, there's some things to think about when you're dealing with glass. And, finally, I want to talk about some of the surfaces that you can get. There are a bunch of different types of adhesive films that you can buy to put on there onto your bed, and then it will allow the filament to adhere well, to stick onto your bed. And yeah, there's like Build Tack and some other makers, which is good. You hear a lot of videos, or you see a lot of videos on that, hear good stuff about that. So you might try some of that. What I have tried recently, and I haven't tried the Build Tack, but I have tried some of this stuff. And this was, I got this off AliExpress, and this is a poly midi. So I don't know how to pronounce it, but that's what they said the thing was. So it's and I've actually kind of screwed mine up here. This glossy stuff is ABS juice slurry. It's for printing ABS. I place this sheet on the glass that I bought from China, and it was a 214 by 214 piece of I guess plastic. And 214 by 214 is a little bit big, so I had to cut some of it off, and right there. And it cut well with like a knife, razor, and I put it on the glass bed, and it was printing well. The PLA stuck to it very, very well, and also the ABS stuck on there very well. so well, in fact, that I had to like use like a scraper with like a razor blade in there to try to cut away the filament off of the plate. And I was like, and the problem was that I put this on a glass plate because I wanted it super flat. And it was super flat and it was holding on there, but trying to get the thing off was a problem because I can't bend and flex the glass. So I was like, oh, well, that didn't work. I mean, it worked, but I couldn't remove the print. So that was kind of short-sighted of me. And then I was like, well, why don't I try to remove the plastic, this sheet, from the glass bed, and then I'll place it on something that I can flex. So I ended up going to the hardware store and buying a thin piece of 1 millimeter piece of sheet of metal here. And it flexes, and but removing the this plastic sheet introduced that kind of warping, so it's going to be all warpy and stuff. And I was like, so I kind of screwed up this thing. I paid I think $5 or $6 for this piece of plastic, this sheet. But it worked very well. So I was like, okay, I'm going to order some more of this stuff. And thinking ahead, I'm going to place it on some other stuff. Something that I can easily attach to my bed. And then remove it and flex it and pop off the print. So I went to the hardware store again. Yay, hardware store. And I bought a sheet of aluminum there. You can see, read that. It says eggs arumi aluminum, and it's 1 millimeter thick by 200 by 300. So it's longer than it needs to be, but it's at the 200 millimeter width, which allows for the screws and stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I'll try that. And you can pick up these sheets fairly reasonably for a good price. So I picked up a set of 5 for I think $15. So that means each sheet is like $3 or something. So I was like, okay, well, that's a good price. I did end up having a cut into it, and maybe that's just because I couldn't, maybe the first setup, but that's for $3, and to get a super sticky, super, nice place to print, I think that was a good value there. So, and the sheet of aluminum depends on where you get it and stuff, but how much does a 1 millimeter sheet of aluminum, and it's flexible right there. It's flexible. You could go with another 3 millimeter sheet of aluminum, like the bed, and you can. But can you flex that? So. And can you take that off and put it back on and swap it and do stuff? So swapping out the bed like that seems a little bit more troublesome. So I wanted to do it this way. I think this way is probably easier way to do it. And they come in different sizes. You can get them pre-cut to 200 by 200, which would be small, and on the glass or on whatever surface you're using. Something like this, 200 by 200. Oh, that'd be great. Perfect. And it fit in on top of this PCB heating element, just right there, and you'd be swapping in and out. You'd be good to go. You can get them at 214 by 214. Glue it onto the PCB itself, or you can get them at 220 by 220, which would go on a bigger glass bed like this. It's like, oh, okay, well that's good. So, and you can get them at different sizes. So do some research and like, oh, which way do you want it to go? And it seems pretty good. What I did also is, since I got 5 of them, I also got a bigger piece of aluminum back there, where you can kind of see, because it's the guidelines, this is the grid stops. So yeah, there's aluminum on top of there. I got a larger piece of aluminum, so that I can punch holes in it, and then do a very thin piece of aluminum with this sheet on there, and then just have the full size and cut out places for the holes and stuff like that. So I'm going to try it that way. I try to get 220 by 220. We'll see if that works. So that's all about beds. Different types of beds. So yeah, you know, consider what you want to get, how you want to set it up, how convenient you think that will be. So far, setting it up this way, you've spent maybe, if you're just going to insulate it, you spent maybe $2. If you're going to get a super flat piece of borosilicate glass, another $15 or something. If you want to get one of these super sticky things, the ABS sticks on this well, and with ABS slurry super well, you're looking at another $3 for that. So not too expensive, and you got an environment for sticking, so that's good. Alright, next we'll talk a little bit about adjusting the movement of this type of setup.